investigation into the Bowl Championship Series, which crowns the champion through computer rankings and polls. Senator Hatch joins us now to discuss the BCS. Senator Hatch, good afternoon. What is the basis for launching this investigation?
Well, I believe that there's good evidence that the BCS, with its preferential treatment of the so-called privileged conferences, 6 conferences, versus almost 50% of the other football teams in the other 5 conferences, that they have, I think they're in violation of the Sherman Antitrust law, both Sections 1 and Section 2. In other words, I think they've actually formed a combination in restraint of trade under Section 1, and then under Section 2, there's no question they have a monopoly in the college football ranks. And some people say, well, what are you doing spending time on this when you have so many other things? Well, I don't neglect the other things, but let me just say this to you. There's billions of dollars involved here, and the spread of those dollars gives the BCS conference teams much advantage over other schools in recruiting and Title IX and being able to run their programs and so forth. And these are very serious issues. So I've written a 10-page letter to the President of the United States, who has expressed his concern about the BCS system and, of course, the championship bowl as well.
Right. And, what's your goal? What's your goal here, though, Senator Hatch? I mean, is it to do away with the BCS altogether, or to alter it? And if your goal is to alter it, then how?
Well, my goal is to get into a championship playoff system where literally whoever the team is, whoever the teams are that justify playing in the national championship, that it shouldn't make any difference which conference they're from or which particular side of the BCS system they're from. The BCS requires everybody to join if you want to play in the bowl games, and frankly, they get about $492 million the last time I heard, where the non-privileged conferences got a total of about $62 million. So there's a lot of money involved, and it involves billions of dollars. It's an unfair system, and we need to do everything we can to try and change it.
Hey, it's definitely a big money machine here, and a lot of people have been calling it an unfair system for years. Why the impetus now? Because, as I said, people have been calling for a playoff for as long as I can remember.
Well, I've been complaining about it for years and frankly got tired of it. I don't have any great desire for the federal government to get involved or the courts to get involved, but literally they're arrogant about it. I remember the chief testifier for the BCS, Chancellor Perlman from the University of Nebraska. He just said, well, if the University of Utah, which was the only undefeated team last year, but no chance at all in playing in the championship game, he said if the University of Utah wants to play in the championship game, they ought to play the same teams that the University of Nebraska plays. Well, that's the point. The University of Nebraska is in a preferred conference that the University of Utah or Boise State or TCU or any number of other really outstanding conference teams that are outside the privileged conferences, they don't even have a chance.
How would you set up, though, a playoff system? Because obviously there are a lot of teams involved, and it's also tough to beat the SEC.
Well, they may prove to be, more formidable conferences, although that wasn't so last year, wasn't so a couple years ago with Boise State. The University of Utah walloped Alabama last year, and they were rated #1 for much of the year. So, they at least ought to have a shot, ought to have a chance of playing for the championship. And, you've got 6 conferences in the BCS that really are the privileged conferences, and they get an automatic bid. So you can have as many as 10, BCS conference, privileged conferences playing in teams playing in the various bowls, and the other conferences that are almost 50% of all the other schools only have really 1 or 2 opportunities, and really basically 1, and basically no chance at all to ever play in the national championship. So I would hope that they would get together and form a national championship playoff system that really would make sense, would work, and would be fair, and would allow all teams to be able to participate, and would distribute the revenues from the bowl games a little more evenly, rather than, almost 88% to the BCS schools and 12% to the non-BCS schools, 50% of the other schools. It's just crazy.
All right, Senator Hatch, thanks so much for joining us. Orrin Hatch there from Washington. Quick break.
Coming up on Charlie Rose, The conversation with Taylor Branch about his new book, The Clinton Tapes, tonight at 8 p.m. and 10 p.m.